Hello everybody and welcome to another video. So you might have been wondering with Guild Wars 2, this has been coming up a lot, it's died down a little bit recently I suppose, but you might have been wondering what do I want to do in Endgame. There are an awful lot of people who sunk money on this game, bought it, expected it to be an MMO, keep them playing for a very long time, and they haven't really known what they want to do once they've hit level 80, once they've completed their personal story and maybe done all of the dungeons, or even maybe once they've got 100% world completion. And honestly I kind of consider myself to have fallen into the same camp as well, that the game is a little bit odd in that you will get to the end and kind of start to question, okay, what do I want to do now, what is there to go for? And for a long time I didn't really know what the answer to that question was. I knew that there was a lot that I could go for, but for some reason I found it hard to become motivated to do it. I was having some problem somewhere along the lines, realising exactly what I wanted to do for Guild Wars 2's Endgame, and for a long time I kind of just wasn't participating in it. I kind of just left this character you're looking at on screen right now, I left my Elementalist, I was just playing other characters and doing other things, and it wasn't easy for me to get in every day because I knew there was stuff to do, but I wasn't ever really up for it. But that kind of changed recently. That changed when Halloween came out. I think I have some more valid things to talk to you guys about. And I want to do, as I say, a couple of videos just explaining my impressions of Endgame. And maybe if you're in the same boat, what you could maybe do to get a bit more motivated to come in and actually play it and feel like you haven't wasted money on this game because you've completed it and you feel like you're exhausted and there's nothing to do. There's actually a lot of stuff, and mainly this is going to be a focus on the Mystic Forge for this episode, that maybe you'll want to go for. But really, I think you kind of have to start this off and ask yourself a very simple question. If you're sat there and you haven't played Guild Wars 2 for a while and you want to come back in, you know there's a lot of cool stuff and you know you'd love to explore the world a bit more and there's more things to find, but you don't know why because you don't feel like there's anything really to work towards. If you're in that boat, first of all you kind of have to ask yourself a very fundamental question that's really there at the core of Guild Wars 2, and that's, is cosmetic enough to you? And by that I mean, are you prepared to play the game and really work towards something for upwards of 50 hours or even more than that in some certain cases for things like Legendaries? Are you prepared to play this game for a specific reward that is only cosmetic in nature, that won't give you a higher statistical advantage? MMOs usually do give you statistical advantages, and Guild Wars 2 does to a lesser extent, but the idea is that you'll just be doing it for the way you look. People will still recognise that you've done something cool, that you've got this great achievement and that you've worked towards something, but it's not going to give you some kind of an unfair or a significant unfair advantage over other players, especially when it comes to things like SPVP. I mean, there'll be no such thing there, and in World vs. World 2 that bears to mind as well. There's no such thing as discriminating between players because they have higher stats. Now for some people they really like that. They like that idea of a gear treadmill. You work, you work, you work, you get a little bit better, you get a little bit higher stats, then you work, you work, you work, it goes higher and higher and higher. Guild Wars 2 doesn't have that. So if that's what you like, and to that fundamental question, is cosmetic enough, you can answer no, then the game's probably not for you. At least it's not a game you're going to want to play extensively. It's a game I would suggest you come back at when there have been updates and just more content to do rather than wanting to grind away. But if you do think, oh yeah, I would like to look cool, I really like the look of some of these things, there are some things I'd like to work towards, or maybe cosmetic is enough to you but you just haven't seen stuff that looks cool enough or isn't particularly suited to your tastes, then maybe there's more there than actually you at first realised. I think for me, I've always been able to say that cosmetic is enough, but I wasn't really invested in my character, and I think this is the other problem too. I think with Guild Wars 2, where it's so easy to reach the level cap and it's so easy to complete your personal story, you can kind of come out of it not fully invested in your character. Like achievement points are a great example. Who cares about how many achievement points they have? For a long time playing the game, you won't care. You won't care how you measure up to other people, and you won't really care how your character looks in the grand scheme of things if you haven't spent a certain amount of time in game already. And I think where Guild Wars 2 has made it so easy to just finish that first character, a lot of people think, oh yeah, I would look cool, but what's the point? And that kind of sprang to my mind too. I didn't really mind. I'd rather just go to a different character. Now for that, I'd say that changed for me when Halloween came. ArenaNet talked a lot about their live team and how frequently they're going to put out updates and stuff, and I think a lot of us thought it was PR speak a lot, and I'm still not entirely convinced, but when Halloween came, I ended up just playing this game because it was all new content, really quite a lot, and by the end of Halloween, I found myself far more invested in my character, and I actually then was far more invested in the economy of the game. I actually cared that I'd earned all this money during Halloween. I began to think about where I could place it, and I began to think about how my character looked and how I really wanted to build it going forward in the game. So if you're in that same situation, you can say yes, cosmetic is enough, but you're not really invested in character because you haven't played it that much and you don't really care to go off and go for any kind of shiny stuff. Then my main recommendation would be, like, don't force anything, just keep an eye on updates that ArenaNet are putting out. We've got a big one coming out called the Lost Shores soon enough, and just at least hop back in for those, because you might come out of it and then realise, oh hey, actually this update added a lot of things that I really want to go for and that I would love to earn some money, because they certainly will be adding new things like this. So it's through updates like that I think we'll find a lot of people end up regaining their kind of love or regaining their desires to come back and get some of the cool stuff that's in the game. So yeah, I kind of wanted to do this series. That's kind of how I want to open this. This episode in particular, I want to talk about the rewards themselves. You're probably aware, okay, of legendary weapons. A lot of people, I think, look at Gw2s 2, say, what is there to do at endgame? They hear the answer, go for legendary weapons. If you don't know what those are, there's basically one legendary weapon for every type of weapon in the game. So there's a dagger, there's a sword, there's an axe, there's a shield, and so forth. There happen to be 3 great swords, because apparently great swords are special to ArenaNet, but there's basically one legendary weapon for each of these things, and they're incredibly big, massive, ridiculously difficult things to get in the game that take hours and hours and hours and thousands of in-game gold, that have got amazing skill effects and will really make you stand out. They will change your footprints, for example, to be set on fire, and all kinds of crazy things like this. And you might have heard of the legendaries and seen that, say you wanted a legendary bow, but you don't like the style of the legendary bow in this game because it's to do with unicorns and rainbows, then you might turn around and think, oh well, I can't be bothered, and that might have put you off it, and you might have then thought, well, there's nothing for me to go for in the game. The same might have happened to you with dungeon armors. I've been zoomed in on my character for so long here, because I'm showing off some dungeon armor. Not even a full set, but I'm showing off the Citadel Flame set of armor, which is, yeah, very typical. Everybody goes for Citadel Flames. But there are 8 dungeons in the game. You're probably aware of them. They have explorable modes, which actually earn you tokens, which you can see here in my inventory here. And you can spend these tokens at these vendors here in Lion's Arch. And you might not have realized, A, that these guys are even here, in which case you should definitely come check them out, and B, that you can get not just armor sets from these guys, but you can also get weapons. One thing that you might not have noticed with armors, if you've actually come to these guys, you need to go to this tab here, the lower tab. This is always just a generic set of armor that you're not really supposed to care about. Go to this tab and you can see unique armor sets for heavy, medium, and light, and you can preview these. I would very much, if you haven't ever done this, definitely come to these vendors and come and preview this stuff, because some of it looks really cool. So for example, I'm a light armor wearer, but I can still preview other classes of armor to see how it looks on my character. So there you go, that's the medium armor from the Citadel Flames, and you can do that for all of these guys, so you can see before you've even earned this stuff whether you would really be interested in get the armor. When I this was a long time ago, but when I first did this, I found myself really excited about going for some of these sets, and you really do get to see and appreciate some of the things that you'll be going for. So this is the stuff from the very last dungeon in the game, and not all of it's going to appeal to you, without a doubt. Not all of it's going to appeal to you. You might think that looks like crap, you might think, oh, that's just so stupid, but they have various different styles and types. There are some much more moderate types of armor that you can be found here at these vendors, and there are some much more extravagant types if that's more up your alley. Also, never forget that there's also weapons you can get from these guys, which can be previewed in the exact same way. So if we look at the Ghastly Longbow, Magical Mike, you might have seen him in the channel, got this quite recently, and previewing these won't necessarily always show the effects, but this has a crazy, massive, obnoxious effect, which if you're into that kind of things, really shows your character off like sparkles like mad. So there's a lot to go for as far as dungeons are concerned. I mean, you probably are already aware that there are things to get from the dungeons, and in fact, if you're going for a legendary, you're probably going to spend a fair amount of time in these dungeons too. But if you're someone that doesn't know what you want to go for, speak to these NPCs at the very least, because you might see some stuff that you really think looks cool, and you might actually be up for going for it. So those are the 2 main things. That's my main point, that these everyone kind of knows about, and I think a lot of people do know about the legendaries and have decided, no, it's too much grind, or no, they look like crap anyway, or they know about the armor sets, but they think these all look like crap, or again, even think that these might be too much grind. Or, as I say, it could be that cosmetic isn't enough for you, or it could even be that you're just not invested in your character. But aside from this, there's actually a lot more. The Mystic Forge is what we're using to create legendary weapons, and the Mystic Forge can actually be used for a lot of other things in the game too. Of which I want to show at least one off in this video. So I'm going to re-roll onto my Thief just to show you the creation of some of these other interesting weapons, and you'll find a link in the description. This is mainly what I want this video to be about. The sheer amount of things you can get out of the Mystic Forge that I don't think many people know about, that are actually really kind of cool, and they're not always that expensive. The one I'm going to show off is actually damn cheap. Some of them are comparable to legendaries. Some of them, or most of them, are about halfway to $250 of the way's efforts to a legendary, and some of them, in my opinion, actually look far better than them. We'll be back on my elementalist in a second just to demonstrate that, but I'll see you guys over on my thief in just one moment, and we'll actually craft one of these things, and I'll show you guys how to do it, and hopefully get you more interested in playing with the Mystic Forge, because there's a lot more rewards in this game than you might have expected. Alright, okay, hello everybody. This is my Char, this is Etius. He's only level 56, he's not even 80. I haven't even leveled an ult to level 80 at the moment. That's another thing a lot of people will say. They'll say, oh, level your ults up to level 80. That's actually a good idea to do, just because if you're going for another reward, it is a good idea to have multiple characters at 80, because you can gather a lot more resources and earn a lot more money reasonably quickly. So that's also a good idea to do. But this is my ult. He's a thief, and he's got a short bow equipped right now, but as you may be aware, thieves can use swords. And that's what I'm going to craft for myself here in the Mystic Forge. Being level 56, I've earned myself, since I haven't spent many skill points, 51 unspent skill points. And using these, I can show you how to create a certain item out of the Mystic Forge. One of the cheaper ones you can get, but a certain item out of the Mystic Forge that's kind of cool. I've at least seen the preview outside of the game. So all I've done is I've gathered myself 10 seasoned wood planks, which are very, very basic, pretty cheap over on the trading post, or you can get them for yourself. Just cut down some trees and use a discipline that can actually turn these into planks, refine them into planks. And also I've got myself 10 steel ingots, which also are a pretty low level crafting mat that is available to multiple disciplines. I've just got 10 of each of those. From completing dailies, and I'll be talking about dailies in another episode, I've got myself 63 mystic coins here. We actually only need 10 of those, so I'm going to hold Alt, drag them across, and write out myself a stack of 10. We're only going to need 10 of those. So 10 of each of these. This is nothing, barely any money at all that we've had to spend here. And for the last item for this recipe, we're going to spend our 50 skill points. And for this particular recipe, this is the most expensive bit, I would say, by speaking to this woman, Miani. You might have spoken to her before, and see, she's got an awful lot of weird things, right? These recipes here, for example, these are all to do with legendary weapons, which you don't necessarily have to worry about for this stuff I'm about to show off. Elonian wine she's got here, and she's got all of these other odd things too. This item here, an Eldritch Scroll, costs 50 skill points, and this is the last item we're going to use for this particular recipe. So I'll buy that 50 skill points down on this character, but that's fine. We'll go over to the Mystic Forge, we'll use it, and all we're going to do is place in the 10 seasoned wood planks, we're going to place in the 10 steel ingots, we're going to place in the 10 mystic coins, and the Eldritch Scroll. And it says that these items create a match hit create to generate new items. The Forge is actually much more basic than I think it can be quite an intimidating idea. Essentially, it does some just generic things. Like if you throw in 4 weapons or pieces of equipment of the same general rarity, it will spit something back out at you, and you can hope that you'll get lucky. But it also has built into it many different predefined recipes by throwing in different items. So this is our inventory's contents here, and I could just place any old thing in, right? And the rest of the items here will then all grey out. But if there's another item that's compatible with, say, these candy corn, then it will remain still available to select. So here, for example, if I get rid of the candy corn and we go with these wood logs, you can see that I can still place all of this stuff in. So just by taking loads of junk in your inventory over to the Forge, you can discover these recipes for yourself. Though I wouldn't necessarily recommend that. We're late enough into the game now that most of the recipes have already been found. ArenaNet say actually that there's quite a few that people need to continue playing around with it, because there's still a few we haven't seen, which is quite an exciting idea. But you will find, as I say, in the link in the description, it will show you what 4 items you need to create for many of these different items I'm about to show off. So this is the first one anyway, so we're going to throw in these different things. Very cheap, really easy to do. I'm only level 56, we're going to forge those together, and I've just got myself an exotic sword that requires level 80 to use, so I can't even equip this thing yet because I'm not on high enough a level, with mats and things that I found very easily just playing through this character for a short period of time. And Rust Tooth isn't just an exotic sword with max stats that's actually pretty good for combat, it also has an entirely unique skin, and that's that it's a sword that looks, and my coat's kind of obscuring it, hold on, let's actually unequip my coat. I love the look of my Char with his coat off, by the way, because he looks really old with it on, and then you realise he's actually quite young with it off. But in any case, we can now preview with the coat off, and you'll actually see here, it's kind of like a sword, like a hacksaw, kind of pretty cool, interesting sword here, which you can't get anywhere else in the game. So there's a lot of unique, very decent, statistically, pieces of gear that you can get out of the Mystic Forge, with sometimes a lot of effort, and sometimes very little effort. The Legendaries aren't the be-all and end-all. I'm going to go back over to my Elementalist, because you might think, well, hold on, what else is there? That might not look very good to you. But I'll go back over to my Elementalist, and I'll show you, in person, actually, my character using some of the better things that you can get out of the Forge. So give me 1 second. probably would have been a better idea to have just done the char thing later. But okay, so we're back over on my Elementalist. This is my friend Gw2s Buddy here, and these are some of the skins you can actually get in the game that you might not have actually known about. As you know, many classes have got different abilities that will conjure, for example, weapons. The Guardian, for example, can summon a Spirit Hammer. Now, you might just be familiar with that as a skill. This is one of the skins you can get out of the Mystic Forge. With its transparency, with its glowing, fiery effect, everything about it, you can be equipped as a permanent, wieldable weapon. The same with this sword here. The bow, all of them are actually things that you can use in-game. So I've got some too as an Elementalist. I've got an Earth Shield here, which you can get out of the Mystic Forge. It might not look that impressive, but I've also got this lightning hammer. This is called Mjolnir. This is actually something you can craft out of the Mystic Forge. He should be picking some of them up too, so you can see the shield a little bit larger. Maybe if you're a Guardian, you get that additional effect. So this lightning hammer here, with the effects that it applies as it swings around, the sounds it has, the zapping, all of it you can get out of the Mystic Forge, and are way cheaper, but still with some considerable effort than legendary weapons. So this is something else that's available. Obviously, I'm on a tiny little Asura, but larger characters, you know, these things are going to be really obvious. You've got the Frostbow. This is another one. There are screenshots of this being used over on the wiki, glowing in dark rooms. One of the better ones, in my opinion, would be the fiery greatsword. This one here, this is called Volcanus. If you create it out of the Mystic Forge, a level 80 exotic greatsword that will be on fire, just as you can see here. It will have the effects as you swing. Everything about it, you can get these all out of the Mystic Forge, and there are many different things available there, including weapons and skins that aren't available at all to players. For example, the Gw2s in Ascalon, they all have faux fire weapons, and these can all be crafted in the Mystic Forge, which are distinct, as far as I'm aware, to the spirit weapons that we're seeing here, that you can also equip. There's even totally left ball, completely unique things. There's like a teddy bear that you can craft if you wish, that's like this cursed teddy bear thing. You've got very small little weapons as well that aren't necessarily really big and obnoxious if that's not your kind of thing. There's one called Gw2s Scale, which is just this tiny little scale that you hold in the palm of your hand and it acts as a focus. There's another focus that's a giant glowing purple orb thing called the Anomaly. There's absolutely loads of things to go for, and they're not necessarily all ridiculously expensive. All of them will cost Mystic Coins. As you saw, the recipe I used cost only 10. Some of them can cost up to 100. All of them will use an Eldritch Scroll, which is 50 skill points, but those last two slots can create a multitude of different and interesting items, and all of the recipes are pretty simple to know. So yeah, that's one thing I would say. Definitely have a look in the description for this video and have just a look at that page, because there's so much you can get out of there. Lastly as well, if none of those even tickle your fancy, if these aren't things you feel like you'd like to go for Guild Wars 2, there are also other named items that can drop in the world. A lot of people asked me about my scepter a couple of episodes ago. This is something called Emberglow. This is just a scepter. If you have this on a large character, it's ridiculously large. I know that a lot of people feel like it's actually too big. I quite like it on an Asura because it's a weapon that people can actually see. As you can see when I go to my hero panel here, the weapon that I've got equipped right now here is Emberglow, which I've put a sigil on at the moment. Not a very good sigil, but hey. So there's all sorts of stuff to go for. With these particular named ones, I'd actually say maybe you'd be better off if you go for some of the stuff in the Mystic Forge, because, or if you want these, you'd have to buy them on the trading post, because it's very difficult and very low chance for these to drop in certain areas, and it's not well documented where a lot of these come from. But there are a lot of things to go for outside of Legendaries. Of course, my dagger as well at the moment is an Invader's dagger. These are badges in World Vs as well. There are unique things to get there. Of course, in SPVP, you have totally unique skins as well that you can go for. Obviously, it's a bit out of the scope of this video. But yeah, there's a lot of things to go for. For this video, I just wanted to show off that, in particular, that list, some of the cool things that you can make, and hopefully you guys will see something to actually go for, because I think that's the first thing. When people ask about endgame in Guild Wars 2, it's like, what am I going for? And first you need a goal. You need something that you want. And this is a big thing, I think, that exists in the game that people don't know that they can go for. So that's what I want to open up this first episode with. I think next one will probably be what I do daily. What am I actually doing to earn the stuff that I want to go for? I personally am going for a legendary. All that said, I am going for a legendary anyway. I've already got my really nice scepter that I quite like anyway. But I'll be going for that. And for these things, of course, you need a lot of money. Next episode, I'll be talking about what I do every single day in-game to earn the karma. Like, this character's got 436,000 karma, which is a fair amount now. And I haven't really put too much effort into that, I would say. So there's a kind of a routine I've ended up developing, and I've got some nice tips and things for you guys. So when you do log in each day, you feel like you've got a load of different things you want to go for, and what you can achieve with them. So yeah, hope you guys like the idea of that. Maybe you'll see something you like, and I guess I'll see you guys tomorrow for the next part of this little thing about Endgame in Guild Wars 2. I'll see you next time.